"You don't have permission, sir," the woman in the navy pantsuit said, her tone clipped as if the very idea of him was a stain. Graham's left hand paused on the brass handle, fingers loose, the room already full of expectant faces. A smaller voice cut through the hush, tremulous, "But my feet hurt, and my daddy said I could sit." The CEO's gaze hardened. She nodded to security. "Escort them out. We need the lounge for investors only." Graham's jaw tensed, but he stepped aside, guiding the small hand at his hip. For a moment, no one moved. The boardroom doors remained closed. The silence grew teeth. Another voice, older, deliberate, broke in from the end of the table. "Before you do, take a look at the plaque by the door." The CEO's fingers curled around her glass stem. She turned sharp. "That doesn't." But then her eyes caught the inscription, the faint outline of initials etched in bronze. He met her gaze, unmoving. "You never did check who built this place." A breathless moment, the room waited. No one answered her next question. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. It waits until someone dares to open the door, stay until the very end. It started 12 days before, when sunrise was still cold, and the dust on the ranch clung to everything that moved. The barn doors groaned as Graham Archer slid them open, boots gritting through fresh straw. His hands were already stained with engine oil before the sun cleared the hills, a Tuesday routine made more urgent by the uncertain noise from the old tractor and the crunch of frost underfoot. Between teeth, he checked expenses scrawled on a gas receipt. School lunch balance, phone bill, last month's overdue rent. 11 days left before the landlord would call again, his tone less forgiving with every message. The ranch's main house stood further up the hill, but Graham made his way to the service shed to start the day, daughter in tow and knapsack slung over one shoulder. Across the trailer yard stood the foundation's immaculate SUV, paint gleaming, the logo sharp and new as the city folks who drove it out here. He kept his head down, clipboard tucked under his arm. Discretion was the currency of a ranch hand. Then came the call, "You," sharp and cool as the SUV's passenger door swung open. The woman stepping out was all edges and dark silk, her phone an extension of her hand rather than an object. Around her trailed a cluster of well-dressed assistants, eyes tracking everywhere but on him. "My daughter needs to use the restroom," Graham said, polite as possible. "Just a few minutes inside." Her attention hardly flickered. "The lounge is closed. That space is reserved for sponsors, not staff." Eyebrows arched in perfect symmetry, she motioned to the woman behind her. "Handle it." "But she's 7, Graham said, almost a whisper though his palms pressed flat against his thighs. "We have policies, I'm sure you know your station." Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. "There are plenty of facilities for support staff." Graham's daughter Hazel shifted from foot to foot, thumb tracing the etched north and south on her tiny compass. He moved to help her, knelt to her height. She pressed close, voice so soft only he could hear. "Do you think I'll ever get to see that room?" He steadied himself. "Not today, Bug, we'll find another place." The CEO watched them as if cataloging livestock. "Don't let this happen again. Next time the gate's locked for everyone without clearance." He nodded, tucked his hands into his jacket pockets. The assistants watched as they left, but nobody spoke. Back outside, Hazel's cheeks were bright from the bite of the air. Graham lingered by the fence, not ready to gather himself in front of watchful eyes. He closed a fist around the rent bill, paper creasing. The ranch owner's dog barked twice, and he remembered how quickly a bad morning could break the rest of the day if you let it. He started the walk toward the bunkhouse. Home, as much as any place, was. Hazel ran up the steps ahead of him, slipping the broken compass from her coat and balancing it on the porch rail as though testing the wind. Inside, the little kitchen filled up fast. Muffin crumbs littered the wooden table, a breakfast half-eaten in her rush to get ready. The fridge tape sagged under a reminder, "Check school forms." Graham squatted by the mail pile, sorting out the bills into a careful stack. 11 days until the landlord's call. Hazel circled, still holding her compass. "Daddy, is there a place you don't get in trouble?" He stopped mid-fold, letter in hand. "What do you mean?" She looked up, eyes direct. "You always say sorry to people who look busy or mad, but do you ever get tired of always having to be so nice?" He set the bill down flat, slow as lesson chalk, sat at her level. There was the ache in his left knee from the fall last April. He had walked it off in front of the ranch hands, wrapped it tight at night. There was the perfume bottle behind the flour sack in the top cupboard, untouched since the day her mother fell on that ridge above the barley field and vanished into the dust and silence. Hazel pressed the compass into his palm. "You can borrow it today," she decided. "It doesn't work, though." "Maybe it points to us instead," Graham replied, folding her hand around his thumb. He wrote a note on her napkin for school lunch, his usual, "Remember you're brave, Hazel," and packed it into her backpack. She read it aloud. "You always say brave, not good." "You're both," he said. Hazel grinned, mouth full of crumbs. "Maybe I'll be brave enough to look inside the grown-up room next time." "Maybe you will," Graham replied, voice catching. They finished breakfast in a companionable quiet, the sound of boots scuffing beneath the table and the kettle whistling softly. A knock at the door, a neighbor dropping off eggs. Graham thanked her, offered the last 2 muffins in return. Hazel watched, humming softly, her compass swinging from one finger. Later, after she had gone for her school drop-off, Graham sat in the hush, sun pressing through curtains, engine manuals stacked in the corner, toolbox locked tight on the counter. He turned the compass over in his palm, tracing its lines. Out the window, a black SUV idled at the gate, the Foundation's logo glaring back at him, a promise or a warning. Atop the glass tower that overlooked the city, Allison Voss barely heard the clang of construction 12 stories below. Her office was all glass, walls, doors, even the desk, reflecting pristine efficiency but empty of comfort. She paced, cell phone pressed to her ear, gesturing to her assistant. "Confirm the itinerary. Get the media calls lined up for 3. No, don't move the dinner." The assistant, a young man with anxious posture, nodded and scrawled her notes. Allison didn't look up. "Remind them, this is the flagship project for legacy donors, not a petting zoo. I want no repeat of the last incident." She checked her watch, 54 minutes until the investor call. On the far edge of her expansive desk, a spreadsheet pulsed in red, targets unmet, projections slipping. Investor exit window, midnight. Her jaw moved once as she read the memo from the board chair, stripped of pleasantries. "Your continued tenure is contingent on securing the Anchorfield acquisition. No exceptions." As if that weren't enough, Allison's eye traced the framed Foundation dedication photo behind her desk. Her own face blurred among suited men, a ghost beside her father, his hand on her shoulder decades ago. She ran a finger along the edge of his old briefcase, now a relic perched beside the stack of today's contracts. She scrolled unread messages on her phone. Her thumb hesitated over an email subject line, "Appreciation dinner declined, Graham Archer." She had read it before, often, never aloud. Underneath it, a text from the night manager. "He called again asking for access for his daughter, not our problem." She responded in clipped precision. "No, keep boundaries firm, no exceptions. Make sure legal has the new NDAs ready." Minutes ticked by. Allison glanced at the untouched meal on the table, a chef's demonstration cooling under a glass dome. She sipped water, nerves masked. Her meetings rotated in and out like scenery. Board members leaned on the doorframe, updating her. Legal reviewed the lease, we're in the clear. Another, press requests are getting sharper, should we tip off that blog? She tapped her pen. No leaks, if they call, direct them to my office only. At noon, her assistant brought a new problem. Mechanic from the ranch wouldn't accept payment for the after-hours work. He said it wasn't his job, the assistant whispered. Allison's response cut short. If he wants to keep his position, he'll follow protocol, no more sympathy hires. A long pause then, get William from the investor list, organize a face-to-face. Pressure point is 10 hours away. The assistant hesitated. The board wants to know about contingency if the funding walks. Allison looked out at the city glass, the press of space below. Tell them I never needed a safety net, just results. She didn't see the subtle slip in the spreadsheet margin, the way a missing name might surface at the wrong moment. Get me the file, I want to know everyone attached to this property. The assistant nodded and left, closing the glass door as if afraid it might shatter. Allison breathed in once, twice, her father's briefcase silently anchoring her to earth. The main generator's dead, barked the ranch manager the next afternoon, greasy cap shoved over thinning hair. 20 specialists can't get us up. If it stays down, the donor summits off. Board will kill us. Graham, still in stained coveralls and with Hazel's broken compass hanging from his pocket, stood a measured distance apart. He watched two electricians debating over blueprints, heard the click-clack of investor heels against concrete and the foundation logo everywhere, on glass, on napkins, on the sleeves of the woman now hovering by the terrace. He approached the hulking machine, touching the warm casing. Quietly, he traced the wiring once, eyes narrowing. Under breath, "Not the solenoid, ground relays shorted." He asked for a screwdriver, unscrewed a faceplate. The junior ranch hand wandered over, brow creased. "Boss doesn't want us improvising. Managers say call in the city techs." "You'll be down for a week if you wait," Graham said mildly. He wedged himself under the panel, hands moving as though the instructions were muscle memory. Within minutes, a flicker rose from the control panel as his knuckles found the right circuit. "It's not the relay, the main earth wire's corroded, there's your trouble." The junior watched, equal parts awe and confusion, as the engine whirred to life, hummed deep and whole. "How'd you never mind, you do this before?" the witness stammered, voice low. Graham shrugged, closed the box, put the screwdriver back. "Been around some old machines. It's the earth connection that fails, not the signal." He didn't explain how the feel of worn copper under his fingers was as familiar to him as his daughter's hair. Before the conversation could continue, Allison appeared, hands on hips. "What are you doing?" she demanded, tone clipped. Graham straightened, wiped hands on his jeans. "Machine S up should last through the summit." She scanned him head to toe, eyes lingering on the compass swaying at his hip. "Probably a fluke," she dismissed. "Anyone could see that. Don't let it go to your head. Fixing old engines doesn't win you any favors here." The junior met her gaze and for the first time didn't look away. "Ma'am, I saw him fix what the factory rep and 3 tech teams couldn't." Allison's glare faltered for a microsecond, her mask slipping. "That will be all," she snapped, then stalked back toward the SUV, phone already in hand. The witness, still looking after her, turned to Graham. "Who are you?" But Graham only shrugged, the compass cold in his palm. The rumble of the generator echoed, steady now through the barn's rafters. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. After dusk fell, the junior hand, Noah hurried back to the office, the glow of his cell phone screen illuminating tense features. He tapped into the Foundation's digital directory, searching for Graham Archer. No staff file. He tried payroll, the name was there for gardening and grounds, but nothing else. Invoices faded out after April. Odd. Noah dug deeper, tugging at threads. His cousin, once a temp in the city, recalled seeing the name on a company plaque years back. A narrow thread, but enough. He opened a message to another junior board member. "Hey, do we have a record for that ranch hand, Archer? Something's weird with the repairs." Meanwhile, back in the bunkhouse, Hazel spun slow circles in the kitchen, clutching her compass, hunger forgotten. "Daddy," she said, "if you could go in any room at all, what would you say when you got there?" Graham, at the sink scrubbing a plate raw, stopped, dish halfway to the rack, didn't answer for a long moment. Water dripped in the silence. Hazel waited, small fingers at her lips. "I'd say, don't be scared, I brought a friend." She peered up, "if I wasn't in trouble yet." The compass sat between them, its needle spinning with every bump. Graham set the plate down, breathing in slow. "That's a good answer, Bug, better than mine." Noah's search yielded more. A faded dedication plaque photo from the building website, the name Archer etched on the bronze, dated a decade earlier. Across the ranch office, the pressure mounted. The Foundation's legal counsel dropped a sealed calendar on the table. "Investor exit window closes at midnight. We miss our numbers, that's it. They'll shut the project." Allison's enforcer, Robert, tall, gleaming shoes, walked in to collect updates. Noah stiffened, glancing up from his computer. Robert's eyes narrowed. "Problem." "Just checking staff records," Noah replied, cool, "making sure all's in order for the summit." Robert stepped in close, lowering his voice. "Careful who you ask about around here, especially today." His fist rested on the desk. Noah clicked over to another screen. You want everyone to clear security, right? No mistakes at the door. Robert grunted, studying the badge numbers. Don't make trouble, some people stay invisible for good reason. After Robert left, Noah pulled up the archived dedication photo one more time. He shot a message to the board's group chat, urgently need to confirm building dedication history, who signed off on Anchorfield Ranch, attached photo. Outside, Graham was quietly approached by the city manager. There's something odd here. The main board is short on technical leads and I need someone who understands these systems. Will you at least check the transfer panel before the dinner? Graham shook his head, turning away as if exhaustion itself resisted. I'm not signing anything. I'll take a look, but only because I see too many people trying not to look. The city manager pressed a folded bill into his hand. Graham pressed it back, non-committal. Not for me, let's keep this quiet. Time slid toward midnight. The calendar on the wall in Allison's suite bore 2 red circles, tonight's closure, and ominously, tomorrow's emergency board review. Noah, sinking into the office chair, realized the night might not end quietly. A storm was coming. The morning after the call was made, Allison, standing in the shadow of her glass windows, her reflection trembling against the city's pale dawn, dialed the ranch supervisor. Block Archer from any area near the event space. If he shows, call security. That's not a request. She hung up hard-paced. Her assistant scuttled in, holding a tablet. The donor dinner is over capacity. Investors noticed something at the dedication wall last night. There's buzz on the group chat. Allison's eyes narrowed to slits. Shut it down. I want every entrance monitored. If we sacrifice optics for a day, so be it. She rapped her knuckles once on her desk, then dialed the foundation's lawyer. He shouldn't be working here. No exceptions. Get me something in writing within the hour. Meanwhile, Hazel at school sensed the wall too. At lunch, a teacher quietly pulled her aside. Your father's work pass may not scan tomorrow. Just tell him, okay, sweetie. Hazel's face went blank. Why? It's just how the rules work, the teacher said lamely. Back at the ranch, Noah intercepted Graham by the loading dock, voice low. Don't go up to the lounge today. She's got security watching. Something happening with the dedication records. People are asking questions. Graham nodded, hands steady as he wiped oil from his fingers onto a rag. He tapped his phone, sent a single message. Ready if you are. The other end replied, room will be prepared, tell her to look at the wall. In the silence after the call, Graham stared at his reflection in the barn window, creases at the corners of his eyes, a gray at the temple. In his pocket, Hazel's compass rattled gently. Up in her office, Allison signed the digital suspension slip with a flourish, sending it to the board. He should not have made this her problem. The gallery room blazed with halogen light, board members shifting in their custom jackets as the foundation's gala began. Laughter flickered at the edges of the crowd, brittle, hungry for favor. Allison controlled the podium with practiced grip, scanning the room for dissent. The glass door stood closed behind security, but already whispers crackled, a rumor of something missed, a name forgotten, a mistake in bronze no one had dared admit. As Allison clicked the mic on, stating, "This is a celebration of what we build together," the main lobby doors swept open. Graham entered, not in his usual denim but a pressed shirt, boots still dusted but posture squared. At his hip, Hazel's shattered compass and for the first time his old watch gleaming under the cuff. Board members shifted. The foundation's photographer lowered their camera, uncertain. Robert, the enforcer, moved to intercept, but the junior hand, Noah, spoke first. Let him in, it's his building. Allison's mouth tightened, but the board chair interrupted. Before we begin the awards, I want your attention on something at the entrance. The plaque, can someone read the name, please? A hush, the assistant crossed to the door, pausing under the warm gallery light. Plaque says, Anchorfield Ranch dedicated to Graham Archer for Vision and Foundation. Dated 2012. The color left Allison's face, draining from forehead down. Her hand trembled as she set the ceremony script aside. From the back of the room, Hazel peered in, the compass spinning slow in her palm. You don't have permission, sir, Allison said, voice clipped but now tinged with strain. Hazel's treble echoed between the marble walls. But my feet hurt and my daddy said I could sit. Security looked from Allison to the board chair. Nobody moved. Noah spoke, voice clear. Mr. Archer was the principal donor, the land and the building, his name's on nearly every schematic. You never checked who signed the original charter. The room stilled, the assistant's eyes dropped. Another board member tapped a pen furiously, journalist's mouth ajar. Allison's fingers gripped the lectern. Her voice ran thin. That doesn't mean policy disappears. Without standards, the foundation collapses. Graham's voice was a whisper, precise. You never did check who built this place. Allison's lips parted as if searching for reply. She tried to speak, but the words caught. In the hush, even the compass seemed to pause. No one answered her next question. 6 months later, sunlight played off the new dedication plaque at the restored ranch office. The lounge was open on weekends, kids allowed, napkin notes tucked by Hazel's place at the table. Be kind, be curious, go anywhere. Noah now ran the technical operations wing, happy enough behind the main desk, telling stories about engines that could never quite fail for good. Allison, once a constant headline, was now a silent line in the annual reports, quietly removed by a vote no one contested, her name traceable only through footnotes. Hazel, 7.5, balanced her silver compass atop a row of books. Watching her father, she said, "Daddy, if we did go in any room, what would you say now?" Graham looked up from his work, smile small but unmarred. "I'd say we belong here together." Hazel beamed, sliding the broken compass into his hand. Some truths are built stone by stone, disregarded by those moving too fast, anchored by those left to pick up the pieces. In rooms where the forgotten and dismissed are told quietly to wait outside the door, sometimes all it takes is the right name spoken once for the whole history to shift. And that, after all the dust and silence, is how a story endures. Hazel nodded as if this secret promise was what she'd been waiting to hear all along. She flopped backward on the rug, compass glinting in the mellow sunlight that drifted through the kitchen window. "Can I tell them the story, the one you only told me?" Graham looked up from his notes, fingers dancing absently across bits of wire and copper on the table. He smiled, hesitant still, a habit formed from years of keeping pride folded away but warmer now, easier. "We can tell anyone you want, Bug, everywhere you go." Hazel rolled onto her stomach, chin in her palms, even in the big room with the fancy chairs. "Especially there," Graham said, rising. He moved to open the small display cabinet that had been a broom closet when he first came to this place. Now it held keepsakes. Hazel's first drawing, a snapped gear from the generator, even a Polaroid of the barn just after a thunderstorm, beams gold through mist. Hazel sidled up beside him, her gaze flicked between the mementos and her father. "Did you ever wish you kept it a secret that you built Anchorfield?" He closed the cabinet softly. "Sometimes, when the noise was worst, it was easier for them, everyone, when I was just the grounds guy. But easy doesn't mean right." "Are you ever afraid?" she ventured. Graham bent, hands braced on his knees so they met eye to eye. "Most days, but mostly when I think you might not believe me or when I'm not sure the story's worth telling. But then I remember your compass, you always find your way. Maybe that's enough." She hugged him the way children do when words aren't quite right, energy rushing in. Her worries, though, seemed to slip away as quickly as they'd come. "Will the lounge always be open now?" she asked, mouth shaping the question as though it were hope itself. "I think so," Graham replied, his voice gentle. "It's written down now on the wall, on the books, in the rules. Kids get a seat at every table." "And what about Miss Voss?" Hazel said with a frown, the only one of her troubles she seemed to nurse. "Does she have to sit outside?" Graham's mouth twitched, thoughtful. "Maybe for a while. Maybe until she learns to see not just what's written in the bronze, but who stands in the hallway. Time changes people, you'll see, Bug. Sometimes, out there, even the ones who close doors wish they'd left them open." A playful tap sounded at the window. Noah leaned in, eyebrows waggling above his ever-present clipboard. "Trouble at the pump line. Someone's horse thinks it's a swimming pool." His grin made a joke of any emergency. Hazel giggled, racing to the door. "Is it Molly again?" She grabbed her boots without waiting for an answer. Graham followed, pocketing the compass. They stepped out into late spring, the air thick with new grass and the distant haze of the city. Around the main office, clusters of kids chased kites, parents trailed behind, laughter skimming over fresh-mown lawns. The ranch sounded more like home than headquarters. At the old lounge, the doors stood open. Inside, families snacked on lemon bars and cold sweet tea. Someone strummed a guitar near the library shelves. The plaque glinted warmly, names visible, all of them, not just one. The schedule scrawled on a whiteboard listed today's open hours and tomorrow's story circle. Everyone welcome, bring a question. Hazel ducked inside, hopping across the soft carpet to join other kids perched at a low round table. All faces glowed in the light, no security badges required. Noah found Graham by the coffee maker pouring 2 mugs. Got a minute. He nodded, taking a cup. What's going on? Noah leaned against the wall. Had a call from the city manager yesterday, asked why the foundation's gotten quieter. Apparently, some donors want to know if we're being managed properly now that the press is off us. Graham sipped, then shrugged. Tell them the grass is growing, the fences hold, and we haven't needed a generator reset in 6 months. That's management. Noah snorted, and the board. They know it too, some of them stop by. Allison's old crowd mostly moved to other projects. New VP comes twice a week, sometimes brings her kid, no more lines at the door. They watched Hazel reading to a smaller child, her voice proud, eyes alight. It never failed to surprise him. The ripple outward from one silent moment years ago, multiplied in every open invitation. Noah set his cup down, voice low. You never said why you did it, why sign the building away under your own name but vanish into the background after. Graham watched his daughter, a flicker of guilt mingled with contentment. I wanted somewhere she could walk in without asking first. That meant I had to leave the front sometimes, stay quiet. Let other people think they were deciding. Roots don't boast, they just hold the earth in place. Noah's eyes softened. Still, glad you finally made them see. Place feels different with the door open. Graham smiled faintly, just needed the right crowd in the room. You ever going to tell her everything? Noah nodded toward Hazel. One day, when she's old enough to want the story, not just the answer. The door opened. In strode Helen, the new VP, gray streaks at her temples, sensible shoes, and the easy authority of someone who listens before she speaks. She carried a tray of scones, her own little girl at her side. Good morning, gentlemen, Helen said, setting the tray near the coffee pot. Hazel, I brought your favorite. Hazel dashed over, snagged a scone, and grinned at Helen's daughter. Want to see the compass? It tells you how brave you are. Helen's eyes met Graham's. You're speaking on Saturday, right? At the dedication picnic. Graham hesitated. He glanced at Hazel, then at the sunlight pooling through the open doors. Hazel, what do you think, should we? Hazel nodded vigorously. You should tell them about the broken compass. Helen smiled. That's the best kind of story. Sometimes things don't have to point north, they can just point home. Hazel held out the treasure for show and tell, needle whirling, every mark earned and cherished. In the lawn that Saturday, the ranch filled with the hum of voices, city and country, old hands and new, grown-ups and children weaving together at long wooden tables. Someone set out a guest book beside the old plaque, inviting messages. Graham stood with Hazel beside him, looking out at faces both familiar and not. He hadn't written a speech, never liked them much. He cupped the compass in his palm, remembering muddy boots, locked doors, silence in the hallways, and the sound of Hazel reading stories in her own clear voice. Helen introduced him. When we talk about legacy, we talk about places that let everyone in. I'd like you to meet the man who built the foundation for all of us, Graham Archer. Applause rang, not sharp and formal but warm, lifting at the edges. Graham leaned toward Hazel and whispered, "Want to say something with me?" She pressed closer, shy but eager. He cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming, he began, but Hazel tugged his sleeve. And for opening the doors, she said, loud enough for the cluster at the back to hear. Laughter rippled through the audience. Graham smiled, taking courage in his daughter's presence. We built Anchorfield for everyone who ever waited outside, for anyone told to come back later. My daughter and her compass remind me that even when you lose your way, or someone tells you not to bother, you keep moving forward. Sometimes the story only changes when someone smaller asks why the door was closed in the first place. Hazel added solemnly, and when you don't get in trouble for sitting down. Even the old board chair, once wary and taciturn, laughed aloud. After people lingered around the table, sharing their own stories, times they'd felt out of place, or times a door had opened for them because of a single person's kindness. Helen's daughter traded stories with Hazel, and by mid-afternoon a stack of brave notes filled a basket by the lounge. Later, as sunlight softened to gold, Noah and Graham tidied up together. Noah balanced a box of used cups while Graham wiped down tables. Noah said, "Hazel called the lounge the bravest room in the world to my nephew earlier. Guess you did all right." Graham shrugged, content. "She's right. If the right people get to stay, that's all the bravery we need." A little voice piped up from the hall. Hazel, searching for her father. "Daddy, look, somebody left a note in my notebook." She brandished a folded scrap, handwriting unfamiliar. Graham read it aloud. "Thank you for letting us in. My grandson wants to fix engines like you. Maybe someday he'll have a room, too. A grateful grandparent." Hazel looked up, beaming. "Can we show them how?" "We can try," Graham answered, his voice steady and unafraid. Evening closed in, gentle and cool. The lounge lights glowed, laughter drifting out onto the porch. Graham stepped outside for a moment, breathing in the scent of grass and baked earth, and let himself remember every step. The loneliness, the resistance, the resolute belief that one name, quietly etched in brass, could someday swing a door wide. Hazel joined him, slipping her small hand into his, compass tucked between their palms. She tilted her head, considering, "Will you ever leave, Daddy?" He shook his head. "Not as long as you want me here, bug. And if someone else wants to build another room." He gazed at the horizon, at the faded scars of old barbed wire, the new saplings planted just down the slope, at the open path leading up to the house. "Then we help them, so every room's brave and every story belongs." Inside, light and voices carried on, the circle widening, the story alive. The new board chair paused in the doorway. "Graham, can we hang the compass next to the plaque?" Hazel's face brightened, pride spun bright in her cheeks. Graham knelt, offering the battered compass to his daughter. "What do you think, Hazel? Time for everyone to find their place." She nodded, eyes shining. "Let's put it right where people see it first, before they even ask permission." They carried it together, moving slow, no need to hurry with the door already open. The nail was crooked, the casing scratched, but when Hazel pressed the compass to the wall, the needle stilled for an instant, as if settling on true north after all. Laughter hummed, sunlight caught in glass, and for once no one was left outside. This was their beginning, their story, indelible, steady, open, as the door would remain for anyone willing to step inside.